In 1965, Benfica reached their fourth final in 5 years, but this time they were beaten by Inter Milan 1-0.
I think they were technically better than us, even though they were down to 10 men. Back then you didn't have substitutes. When their goalkeeper got injured, one of their defenders had to go in goal. And we only won 1-0. Playing at home with a man advantage, and we were only able to win 1-0. That shows just what a team they were.
For all Benfica's dominance in the early 60s, just 2 European Cup wins was disappointing.
I
think we could have won 1 or 2 more European Cups, because our generation were more than good enough to do that.
Nevertheless, Portuguese football was on the up. Sporting had won the European Cup Winners' Cup in 1964, and players from both Lisbon teams made the bulk of Portugal's squad for the 1966 World Cup in England. And in Eusebio, they had the man to lead them to glory.
We had a winning spirit, as the majority of Portugal's players play for Benfica. When we walked out onto the pitch, we were there to win and destroy our opponents. And that's what we did.
It was surprising, though, to see Eusebio without his usual number 8 or 10. It was traditional for Portugal to draw lots for their shirt numbers.
We were in the hotel and the draw was made. I picked out the number 13 shirt, while Eusebio got the number 11, the shirt I've always worn and loved. So I made the following offer to him. I said, Eusebio, imagine wearing the number 13 and becoming the tournament's top scorer. Imagine the mystique that would create around the number 13 shirt. But I was only doing that because I wanted to wear the number 11, my normal shirt. So that's how it was. I ended up with my beloved number 11, and he went on to become the top scorer in the World Cup, wearing the number 13 that was originally mine. I'll never forget that.
It was a tough group for Portugal. After convincing wins against Hungary and Bulgaria, they had to face the world champions, Brazil.
I told my teammates that we're going to win because we're a good side. We're better than good. We're better than Brazil. They were one of the worst national teams I've ever seen.
Brazil were not the same force as the side that had won consecutive World Cups in 1958 and 62. But the way in which Portugal brushed them aside displayed a ruthlessness that surprised many observers. 2 goals from Eusebio, who else, and 1 from Simões sent the champions crashing out. Next up for Portugal, the quarter-finals and a game against the tournament's surprise package, North Korea. Eusebio, though, was at the peak of his powers.
One of his greatest performances probably was in England in '66, when they were 3-0 down to Korea. They got into a 3-0 lead, and I don't think they could believe it, the Koreans, and then suddenly they got 1 goal, and he then wanted the ball all the time, and he just ran over them. Really, it was one of the best performances, an individual performance you'll ever see. Really, it was marvellous.
I said, if we can pull back just 1 or 2 goals in the first half, then we'll win the game. And we managed it. I scored 2 goals. So the first half finished 3-2 to Korea. 7 minutes into the second half, I made it 3-3. And on the hour mark, I made it 4-3. It was one of my best ever games in a Portugal shirt.
With Eusebio in inspired form, Portugal looked unstoppable, but they were up against the hosts England in the semi-final. Eusebio and his teammates were relaxed and confident of another win.
You're not afraid?
Não tens medo?
Não tenho, não.
That semi-final proved to be quite controversial. Portugal's base, Liverpool, was the original venue for their semi-final against the hosts. But the English FA arranged for the fixture to be moved to Wembley. It was a decision that left the Portuguese feeling cheated.
England bought that semi-final against Portugal. The game should have been played in Liverpool, but it was played at Wembley.
E foi para o estádio do Wembley.
After their gruelling quarter-final against North Korea, a hasty journey to London was hardly the ideal preparation for Portugal. Eusebio in particular was struggling to impose his usual game on the English.
We're talking about a semi-final here, about a game where Eusebio wasn't at his best physically. He was tired, all of us were. And then he was marked by Nobby Stiles, who knew just how important Eusebio was to us.
Stiles' uncompromising marking drastically reduced the threat of Eusebio. By stopping Eusebio, England had stopped Portugal.
They didn't let Eusebio play, and Eusebio couldn't find his usual inspiration to get away from his marker, which in turn gave us less chance of winning the game.
2 Bobby Charlton goals gave England a 2-0 lead. With the English dominant on their home ground, tired Portuguese legs just couldn't cope.
I think that if we'd played in Liverpool, we would have beaten England. Even today, I believe that wholeheartedly.
A late Eusebio penalty was too little, too late. For Portugal, the dream was over.
It was really sad. When we lost, I looked to the sky and said, "Lord, what have I done to deserve this?" And that's when the tears came.
The fact remained, though, that Eusebio had now carried his country, as well as his club, to new heights. He finished the tournament with 9 goals to his name and had put Portugal on the world football map.
He was the tournament's top scorer, and he was the best player at the World Cup. No doubt about it. I'm not just saying that because he was my teammate, and I like the guy, but it's true.
Back with Benfica, the goals continued to flow. He received the European Golden Boot after an incredible 42 goals in 1968. It was becoming very obvious just how important he was to his club's chances of success.
With Eusebio in the side, we could win the European Cup. Without him, we couldn't win the Portuguese league.
In Europe, Benfica was still a force to be reckoned with. A Eusebio goal in their European Cup semi-final against Juventus gave the Portuguese a 5th European final in under a decade. Benfica's opponents were Manchester United. For Eusebio, that meant another encounter against his midfield nemesis, Nobby Stiles.
Eusebio had to be marked. You just couldn't afford to let him wander and roam all over the field like you wanted to do. And Nobby Stiles was given that job. And I don't think that Eusebio actually played against a person like Nobby Stiles very often. And he was just terrific. He nullified it.
Stiles was a very tough marker and hard to shake off. Eusebio would often talk about it. He'd say to us, "It'll be hard to get rid of Stiles, so the rest of you will have to do all the running."
I wasn't fit against Manchester United because if I'd been fit, I'd have scored. In the first half, I hit the bar. If I'd been fit, I wouldn't have hit the bar. It would have been a goal.
Like the Real Madrid side they beat in 1962, Benfica were past their peak. For 90 minutes they matched their opponents though, Jaime Graça cancelling out Bobby Charlton's opening goal.
Eusebio gave me a lot of titles over the years, but the one he never gave me was the European Cup. And he was a player who scored goals from every possible angle, but in this case, he missed when it was almost impossible to.
With just seconds remaining, Eusebio missed this chance to give his side the title. His response was typically gentlemanly, but Manchester United ran out 4-1 winners in extra time. Another chance of European glory had passed Benfica by, and yet again it was defeat for Eusebio at Wembley.
I scored goals there, but never won a game. The only stadium where I've scored and never won.
In the early 70s, Eusebio's hunger for goals never diminished. Another European Golden Boot was testament to that. But having remained loyal to Benfica for 15 years, he decided to grasp one final payday in the burgeoning North American Soccer League.
When I went to the US, I earned in a year what I'd have earned at Benfica in 3 or 4 years. And it wasn't even a year, more like 5 or 6 months.
He was an instant success playing in Boston and then moving to Canada, where he captained the Toronto Metro's Croatia in the 1976 Soccer Bowl to win the NASL title.
Crossing and there's a goal. Eusebio, a header.
We were champions in Canada. We were champions of the NASL. And I was captain of the side just as I had been in Boston.
Goals and trophies were never far away from Eusebio throughout his glittering career, but his body could no longer keep up. A long-term knee injury forced him to retire in 1978. But it's here at Benfica's Stadium of Light where Eusebio will forever be cherished. The unveiling of a statue outside Lisbon's Sporting Cathedral confirmed his status in Portugal as a living legend.
When God decides that my days are up, I hope that my funeral procession will stop in front of my statue, make its way around the stadium before going into the stadium. Because I know that a lot of people will come here on that day. But I really hope that day is not anytime soon. I really hope to live a few more years yet.
Yet it's for his football that Eusebio will live long in the memory. For Benfica, he scored 638 goals in 614 games, winning 11 Portuguese championships, 5 Portuguese cups, and 1 European Cup in just 14 years. Portugal's greatest ever player also scored 41 times in 64 appearances for his country. Eusebio da Silva Ferreira. There will never be another like him.